Welcome to the Boomer Technician channel. Today, we're in Redlands, California, and we're not at a car show, but we have two classic vehicles here to look at. We've got a 74 Mustang II, and we've got a 73 Ford Pinto. Now, for those of you who regularly view my channel, you know I'm driving my car to 50 car shows in 50 states. And when I'm at those car shows, I keep hearing the same thing. Oh, a Mustang II, that's just a glorified Pinto. Well, there is some commonality between the two cars, but the Mustang II is a lot more than just a glorified Pinto. And today, we're going to look at the cars detail by detail, and I hope I can convince you that the Mustang II is a very unique car that isn't simply a glorified Pinto. Now, this isn't a criticism of either car, just an observation of the features of both of them. Both the Pinto and the Mustang II were successful vehicles for Ford, and they were both built for specific audiences that differed greatly. The Pinto was built for the economy-minded buyer who was looking for the most car for the least money. The Mustang II was built for a buyer looking for more features, more comfort, and maybe a bit more style. But those two markets both liked the cars that were offered, and they both bought them. So these vehicles were successful in their own right and don't require any criticism. Now, before I start talking about the differences between these cars, let's talk about common parts versus Pinto parts versus Mustang II parts. Common parts are a part that fits many different cars, and on these two cars, a great example of that are the headlights. Both cars have a single headlight on each side with dual filaments, and both those headlights have been used on cars since the late 40s. So that's a common part. There's nothing specifically Pinto or specifically Mustang II about it. A Pinto part is a part designed and engineered to fit the Pinto and only the Pinto. A Mustang II part is a part designed and engineered to fit the Mustang II and only the Mustang II. And a great example of this is the windshields. The windshield on the Pinto is taller and narrower than the Mustang II windshield. That windshield is an inch shorter and 2 inches wider than the Pinto. So clearly, the two windshields will not interchange. You can't take a Mustang II windshield and put it on a Pinto, and vice versa. So with those differences in mind, let's grab the camera, walk up to the Pinto, and do a little filming showing the front end of the Pinto. So up front, the Pinto has a chrome bumper, and it's got a grille that's kind of floating between the bumper and the hood. There's not a fascia at the front of the car that the grille mounts into. The hood of the Pinto curves down and forms the top of the grille opening, and it's got a simple character line running from the front of the hood to the back. As we look at the hood and the fenders and the cowl, all these surfaces are relatively flat. There's not a lot of detailing and there's not a lot of character lines. And all of these components are Pinto parts. So let's step over to the Mustang II and see if those Pinto parts will fit on the Mustang II. Well, the first thing you notice with the Mustang II is the front bumper is not a chrome bumper, it's a composite bumper, painted body color. It does have a bright chrome strip in it, but it is completely different from the Pinto. The front of the car has a fascia that runs from headlight to headlight and mounts the grille in it. The hood does not curve down to meet the grille. Instead, there's a cut line on the back where it flows into the fascia. And looking at the hood, the fenders, and the cowl, we can see that there are character lines running up each side of the hood that are much more styled and much more complex than the Pinto components. So none of these components are going to fit the Pinto, and none of the Pinto components are going to fit the Mustang II. Now we're going to look at the roof, the side glass, and the doors of both vehicles. Starting with the Pinto. The Pinto's roof is a little taller than the Mustang II's, and it's got a drip rail welded into each side that runs over the side glass. The side glass on each car is unique, and looking at the Pinto, it's got a frame around the door glass. In addition, the door pull's got a grip on it with a push button, and the side of the door is relatively simple. It's got a character line that runs from the front to the back, but there's no highly stylized elements or character lines put into the Pinto door. Looking at the Mustang II, we can see the roof has no drip rail. We've got this bright trim that's on all Mustang II's all the way around the side glass, which, by the way, is unique glass and does not interchange with the Pinto. Looking at the door, we can see there's no frame around the door glass, And the door handle itself is a paddle style. It's not a grip and push button style. And the sheet metal on the door is significantly different. It's much more stylized with a cove running through the center of it. But the differences go beyond the outside skin. The actual front hinges to the door do not interchange with the Pinto. The Mustang II uses a hinge that's common to the Torino and the Granada. The Pinto has its own hinge that's a little bit lighter duty and won't work on the Mustang II. The last thing on the outside of the car we'll be comparing is the back of the car. This is a Pinto sedan. It's got a trunk lid instead of a hatch, so we really ought to be comparing it to a Mustang II Coupe, which we'll pull up in a picture here. And you can see the sheet metal on these two cars is completely different. The Mustang II is a notchback coupe, and the Pinto sedan is something of a fastback. But since the Mustang II is a hatchback, we'll go ahead and pull up a picture of the Pinto hatch and talk about the differences. The Pinto hatchback has two chrome hinges at the top on the outside of the body, and the glass extends almost all the way down to the bottom of the hatch. At the back of the car, the sheet metal is just a flat sheet all the way across, and the taillights are mounted on top of the sheet metal. They're very small taillights with just red elements. And by the way, those are not Pinto taillights. They first appeared on the Maverick. And below that, of course, is the chrome bumper. At the back of the Mustang II, we have a different hatch with a different glass and hidden hinges. At the rear of the car, it's not just a flat panel, there's some curvature to it. And the taillights are inset into the body. The taillights are much larger, and they have a yellow turn signal element. And the bumper is a composite bumper, painted body color with that bright trim strip on it. Now let's take a look at the interior of the car. Looking at the Pinto, the first thing you'll notice is the entire floor is covered with a rubber mat. It doesn't have individual rubber mats for each passenger, but there's no carpet in the car. It's all rubber from door sill to door sill. The steering wheel sort of looks like a hula hoop. It's very simple with a very small horn pad in the center. And the dashboard only has two gauges, a speedometer and a fuel gauge. The dash itself is got painted metal across the bottom, and it's a very simple shape. Looking at the door panels, once again, we have painted metal at the top and the bottom of the door. The door cards don't extend over the entire width and length of the interior door panel. There are some commonality in the hardware here, but this has got actually a deluxe interior package. The base Pinto didn't have a grip on the door armrest, and it was a much shorter armrest. Finally, let's take a look at the interior of the Mustang II. Looking at the steering wheel, it's a more deluxe unit with a full width horn pad and thumb buttons on either side. The dashboard is a much more complex piece without any painted metal. It's got a tachometer and some engine gauges in addition to the speedometer and the fuel gauge. Looking at the door panel, the hardware is the same, the window crank and the door lever, but the armrest is quite a bit longer than the Pintos, and the door card itself runs from the glass to the base of the door, where there's some carpet there, rather than exposed painted metal. So clearly some significant differences between the Pinto and the Mustang II in the interior. Now, when I started this video, I specifically said I was using a 1973 Pinto, and there's a reason for that. That was the Pinto Ford was producing when they engineered the Mustang II. So if the Mustang II was just a glorified Pinto, you'd expect many of the parts on this 73 to transfer over to the Mustang II, and that's not the case. Now, there's more to this story than just that, and I'll get to that at the end of the video. But now let's talk about the drive lines, the engines and transmissions on these two cars. The 73 Pinto offered a pushrod 1.6 four-cylinder that was only available with a manual 4-speed transmission. It also offered a 2-liter European-built four-cylinder that had both a 4-speed manual and a 3-speed automatic. Neither one of these engines were offered in the Mustang II. Now, I will note there are two Pinto components that made their way into the Mustang II. For those buyers who purchased the 4-cylinder Mustang II, they got either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic from the Pinto. So the transmission on the 4-cylinder is a common component between the Pinto and the Mustang II. The Mustang II offered two engines, a 2.3 overhead cam 4 that had similar architecture to the Pinto 2-liter, but really didn't share any parts. That Mustang II 4-cylinder did not come from the Pinto. It was designed for the Mustang II. The other option for an engine in the Mustang II was a V6, and it was a European-built unit that was also used in some of the Ford of Europe product. But behind it was a Borg-Warner 4-speed, which was not offered in the 1973 Pinto. So in terms of engines and transmissions, there's very little commonality between the Pinto and the Mustang II. Next, we're going to talk about the firewall and the floor pan on these two cars. And there's as much similarity there as there is on any part of these two vehicles. The wiper motors are the same. The Mustang II does use a Pinto wiper motor, but the wiper transmission is different because the space between the two wiper arms differs from car to car. So where you'd expect them just to take the Pinto part and put it in the Mustang II, they actually re-engineered and modified the part for the Mustang II. The heater box, the evaporator case under the dash mounted to the firewall, is pretty much common to both cars. You can switch them back and forth. And the seats, the frames, and adjusters are common because that portion of the floor pan carries over from car to car. But there are differences beyond that. The wheelbase is slightly different. The rear axle is mounted with a rubber isolator, and the fuel tank is 2 gallons larger on the Mustang II. So while they are very similar, the fuel tanks do not interchange from car to car. Now let's talk about front suspensions. They are very similar car to car, but there are differences. The 73 Pinto did not offer power steering as an option. And the front brakes on a standard car were drum. In contrast, you could get power steering on a Mustang II in 74, and it came standard with front discs. The spindles and the A-arms on both vehicles are unique. The 73 Ford spindle will not fit a 74 Mustang II. And finally, the mounting points for the suspension itself on the Mustang II were unique. There was a subframe placed under the body to help isolate suspension shock that the Pinto does not have. So once again, Ford spent time and engineering money to develop a suspension that gave a nicer, quieter ride in the Mustang II, and it's a significant engineering difference. Before we wrap up this video, let's talk about one of the reasons why so many people think the Mustang II and the Pinto are the same. And that's because of the 74 Pinto. We've been talking about the 73 Pinto, the one in production when they designed the Mustang II, but in 74, there were significant changes to the Pinto, and it was because of the Mustang II. Pinto engineers took a look at the Mustang II and they said, you know what? We can use that 2.3 4-cylinder as our upgraded motor. So they dropped the 1.6, they kept the 2-liter as the base motor, and they started offering the 2.3 out of the Mustang II as their upgraded motor option. They looked at the front suspension with the new rack, the power steering option, the stronger spindles, and they said all of these components are nicer components we want to put on the Pinto. Now, all Pintos pretty much were 4-cylinders. There were a couple of years of V6s, but they didn't build very many of them. On the other hand, the Mustang II had a V6 option and later on offered a V8. So the Mustang IIs that tend to survive are V8s and V6s. Pintos that tend to survive have the 2.3 4-cylinder in them. So looking back with the distance of time, we see that 2.3 in Pinto after Pinto, and somehow it becomes the Pinto motor. So clearly the Mustang II uses Pinto parts. But the reality is many of the parts on the Pinto that are considered Pinto parts were designed for the Mustang II and migrated over to the Pinto. So does the Mustang II have Pinto parts, or does the Pinto have Mustang II parts? Manufacturers use many different parts to put their cars out. Some are common, some are unique to each model, and some share either design or the same part itself. But that doesn't make a Pinto a Mustang II, and it doesn't make a Mustang II a Pinto. We're going to wrap things up, but before we do, I'd like to thank Eric of
Various Media
for providing the 73 Pinto for this video. It's a very nice patinaed example and works perfectly for our needs. So, to tie things together, whether you arrived in a Mustang II or a Pinto, no matter where you go,
There you are.